Welcome to today's recap. We're going to be breaking down, or at least recapping, the first round of the women's NCAA tournament in College Park. We had the 10-7 matchup in the first game of the day. The 7th seeded Arizona Wildcats beat the 10th seeded West Virginia Mountaineers 75-62. Arizona got off to a quick start thanks to guard Shayna Pellington. She was able to attack off the dribble, got downhill quite a bit, mixed in the mid-range jumper here and there, but she put a lot of pressure on the West Virginia defense. After scoring 28 points in the first quarter, Arizona would struggle a bit in the second period as West Virginia clawed their way back into it. Some of that had to do with foul trouble. Shayna Pellington and then guard Helena Poyel for Arizona ended up in foul trouble and were saddled to the bench. West Virginia, their dynamic guards, they were able to get back into it, muddy the game up a little bit. They would trail just 40-33 at the half. Freshman guard Kaylin Gilbert of Arizona was put into a big spot. Talking to Coach Adia Barnes after the game, the freshman has had minutes here and there. She's had some moments, played in some big games, but probably never been leaned on, hardly ever been leaned on the way she was tonight. There's one thing to come through or be put in games throughout the regular season. It's another thing in the first round of the NCAA tournament game to be thrust into action and being asked to run your team. And she did so admirably. She turned the ball over 4 times, but as Coach Barnes said, one of the turnovers she was fine with, it came from trying to push the ball ahead. The other 3, West Virginia does play good defense. They have small dynamic guards. JJ Quinterly does a good job getting her hands in passing lanes. And Gilbert had to deal with the West Virginia guards trying to ISO and attack her, a freshman. So she had to hold up on both ends of the floor, and credit to her for doing so. Coach Barnes talked about the growth of the young floor general in terms of how she ran the point for them, and how she did a good job of trying to make sure the ball got inside, make sure the plays were run, versus looking for a shot, as that's more of her nature coming out of high school. The Wildcats needed everything from Gilbert and a bit more. She held things down until Pellington was able to get back on the floor late, and Shayna didn't waste any time. She picked up where she left off, getting downhill, finishing at the rim. But again, the job Gilbert did, but that was in tandem with what their front line did. Whoever we want to call the 4 or the 5, Kate Reese and Esmarie Martinez were huge for Arizona. Reese finished with 25 points and 6 rebounds. Once Pellington went out in foul trouble, she became much more assertive and demanded the ball on a low block, received the ball, and delivered. It's one thing to ask for the ball. It's another thing to carry through. She and Martinez were a nice 1-2 punch up front, as Martinez had 13 points and 12 rebounds against her former team. Want to make sure that a ton of credit goes to West Virginia for fighting to stay in this game. They went down early, could have easily tapped out. Clearly, that's just not who they are. JJ Quinterly led her team with 19 points and 8 rebounds, routinely getting to the foul line by attacking off the bounce. Watson had 15 and 8 for the Mountaineers. West Virginia had several opportunities in this game when they were getting stops. They missed some open threes, and then they left about 7 points on a free throw line. And it was enough where those misses combined, and at some of the times where things happened, it was enough for Arizona to put together several runs. For a while there, Arizona would get their lead into double digits. West Virginia would claw back down to 3, down to 5. Again, when Gilbert came in after Pellington's 4th foul, she was in charge of nursing a 6-point lead. But when it was all said and done, Arizona put in a total team effort in advancing to the second round, and they definitely showcased their depth. I want to say at least 8 players got in today's game, and they needed them. You had several players who didn't shoot the ball well as a team, but several players came off the bench and hit the glass, which was needed, giving their team second chance opportunities. They'll go on again to the second round, where we'll get into who they face in just a minute. In the second game of the day, we had the 2-15 matchup. The 2, obviously, if it's being held in College Park, I'm sure you guys assume It's Maryland. So Maryland hosting Holy Cross. The Terps didn't waste any time. They jumped out to a 14-0 lead, didn't look back. Their defense got their offense going, and that's usually when the Terps are at their best. Maryland would comfortably win this game, despite a bit of a sloppy third quarter. But again, I wouldn't read too much into the third quarter, whether we're talking about the women's side of the bracket or the men's side of the bracket. Usually the biggest challenge, especially for any team, is just getting through the first game. Survive in advance. Even and especially for higher seeds, they rarely play their best games in their first matchup. It's just about getting a game under the belt. Most teams had a week off, so you got practice legs, but game legs trying to get those back. But Maryland was able to take care of business. Their size and their pressure on defense was a bit much for Holy Cross early on. The 15th seed would settle down a little later in the game in terms of navigating the press a little bit better, swinging the ball against Maryland's zone, getting the ball to the middle, spraying it out to the corners, getting some good looks from three. But again, a lot of that happened in the second half, namely in the third quarter, when the game was kind of already away from them. 5 players scored in double figures for Maryland. You have Renee Alexander, who led the way with 18 points. Abby Myers added 16. Diamond Miller and Cheyenne Sellers both finished with 13, while Faith Basonius added 10 points. The Terps got a chance to get some of their youngsters their first ever tournament minutes. And Ava Sciola and then Gia Cook, each of them played 7 minutes apiece. The third freshman is already part of the rotation. She's become part of the rotation throughout the course of the season. And Bree McDaniel. The Terps will go on to face Arizona on Sunday, which should be a fun matchup. Got Arizona with Reese and Martinez up front, both of which are 6'2". And their guards a little bit smaller in some spots. So we'll see how they deal with Maryland's length. Like Maryland, they also like the press, as does West Virginia. So that was the other added caveat in that first game of the day. Both teams applying pressure, full court, quarter court, half court, what have you. But wanted to give credit to both teams for not turning the ball over. They both did a fairly good job of keeping the ball. And that went a long way into why the game was close for much of the afternoon. Again, for that Maryland-Arizona matchup, should be fun. Obviously, the glass is going to be a huge part of the game. Coach Barnes talked about the importance of Martinez. She's the team's best rebounder. One of the other things that happened for Arizona, they got in a lot of foul trouble. Didn't do a great job of moving their feet, and then at times just going for blocks. Coach Barnes, after the game, said she didn't know her team was a shot blocking team, kind of lending to the thought of why were you trying to get so many blocks. And it's going to be interesting how they deal with Maryland's length. Maryland does not have size in the conventional sense in terms of post players, but their point guard 6'2". That's where they have their size. They have W size, league size on the wings. So we'll see how that goes. But again, that's 2 days from now. They play on Sunday, so we look forward to when they'll announce the time for that game later this evening. So we're looking forward to that. Tomorrow will be practice, so looking forward to talking to them. Another thing, we had got a chance to talk with a couple players post game for Maryland at least. So check that out. It's up on the channel as well. But we'll see you soon Sunday as we figure out who's going to advance out of College Park, whether it be Arizona or Maryland, to head to Greenville for the next round.